This podcast has been brought to you by GM Moving, part of Greater Sports. We're here to help the people of Greater Manchester get moving and to improve lives through physical activity.
Hi, I'm Eve Holt, Strategic Director at GM Moving, and for today's podcast I'm speaking with Ruth at Manchester Mind. So psychiatrists are warning of a tsunami of mental illness from problems that have been stored up during lockdown, and people are feeling huge amounts of anxiety. This week is Mental Health Awareness Week, the theme being kindness. So I'm speaking to Ruth about the links between our mental health, our physical health, staying active, being kind, and what we can all do to look after ourselves as we emerge from lockdown. I hope you enjoy.
My name is Ruth Rosselson and I'm the Resilience Coordinator at Manchester Mind. So what that actually means is my work is focused around helping people manage challenges, change in life and stress as well. So I run 6-week courses for people living with long-term physical conditions. I run our 8-week Mindfulness for Stress course, and I run various different bite-size and half-day workshops around stress, or rather I did before all this lockdown kicked off.
So tell us a little bit then about how have you had to change what you do and how you're doing it since COVID lockdown?
Yeah, so basically I can't do the normal job that I do. Obviously, we can't be in the same room as people, and in fact, my 6-week courses are working with some of the most vulnerable people in Manchester who've got various long-term conditions like diabetes, COPD, as well as inflammatory arthritis, osteoarthritis, all those sorts of things. So they're kind of most at risk. So we were unfortunately having to, put all that on pause, not just for lockdown, but until it's completely safe, really. And then my other courses, obviously, they just can't happen right now. So while we've been in lockdown, and at least for the last 2 months, what I've been doing is running open access online sessions focused around helping people manage anxiety. So teaching different kinds of techniques to help people calm down, self-regulate, and just kind of manage the anxiety that's just so prevalent at the moment. And also running some online mindfulness meditation sessions. So I've got a lovely group of graduates from my mindfulness course who come and meditate with me every Tuesday, but then I also have some open access sessions which people can just drop in on or keep turning up to. In fact, I've got a lot of regulars now, and those are Wednesday lunchtime and also Friday morning at 8. So I've been doing these kind of online sessions, hoping to offer a little bit of additional support, but also connection for people while we've been cut off, as it were. And then also going in and doing some little bite-sized sessions for businesses, for some companies as well who want to support their staff.
I saw your meditation sessions advertised on Facebook and I've been desperate to join and I haven't as yet. So I'm going to make a commitment right now. It's going to happen because it's definitely something I need in my life. So did you say there's a Wednesdays and Fridays?
Yeah, so we do a Wednesday lunchtime, which is 12:15 till 1, and then Friday morning, which is 8 till 8:30. So they're very basic sessions. They're really aimed at people who may never have meditated before, as well as people who have a regular practice. And the Friday morning, it's a sort of hello, and then I lead a meditation. So there's no real theory or much other than to sit and meditate, and then we reflect a little bit. Wednesday, there's a little bit more time for people to connect with each other. Sometimes we have some breakout groups, and for me to talk a little bit about some of the kind of theory underpinning why these mindful practice are really useful for helping manage stress and challenges, but also kind of bringing us a little bit more calm and joy into our lives. And for me personally, my mindfulness practice has been really crucial to during this time. stress and worry, and not really sure how to manage that. Obviously, for a lot of us, there's a big feeling of isolation and a lack of connection. It's so important for us as human beings to be connected. We are social animals, and yet at the moment we're really cut off from that. We're not even allowed to touch people, which is such a crucial part of our well-being. If people who are living on their own are going to be really missing out on something that's really important for mental well-being. But there's also other kind of more serious aspects of lockdown. So people who've got existing mental health problems are really struggling with their routine, with their self-care habits, and then issues around poverty as well. So if you're kind of really anxious and uncertain about going out and don't have a lot of money, then we know that there's a lot of people who are going without food as well. And obviously a healthy diet is as important for our mental well-being as all the other things as well. So we are kind of seeing a lot of issues across the board. But I think that lockdown has affected everybody in terms of mental well-being in one way or another.
And it feels like layers upon layers, which have exacerbated for lots of people, existing anxieties and challenges and poverty and inequalities and all the things that can make life really hard for many people. Going back to, so absolutely as social beings, and I'm a particularly tactile person, so I know I've been very, very grateful for the fact that I do live with other people. I've got 3 kids and I get to have hugs off them every day. And the idea of being isolated and not having that level of human contact day to day, and the impact that must have, just must be so challenging. And I know, speaking to people who again have pets, and just so grateful for being able to stroke a pet, and then I guess one of the other key differences we see is access to outdoor space.
Well, I mean there's a few people who are coming on to my sessions who are shielding, so they're obviously restricted anyway, unable to get to outdoor space even if it is freely available to them, because they have to be really careful. So I kind of seeing that now, 2 months in, people are really starting to struggle. I think initially it was kind of not so hard to just start off on this process, but obviously the longer we're here, the longer we're out of touch with some of the things that are so key for our mental well-being. I'm really lucky. I live so close. I live with a park at the end of my road, and I'm able to make really great use of that, and I've noticed the difference. I've had some conversations with people where they've kind of mentioned how just noticing the bird song outside their house has been something around connecting with nature. So there are ways of doing it without leaving the house, but obviously it's really, really difficult. And I think that it's going to be really clear going forward how important Manchester's green space is and how important it is that we keep it.
So are there any sort of positives and opportunities that you've seen over the last few weeks that are things that actually you would want to hold on to amongst everything else that we can't wait to see to go?
Well, it's quite interesting. So the kind of work I do, I work with people with long-term conditions. And one of the things is that for many of the people who come on my 6-week courses with long-term conditions, they were already isolated. They were already experiencing lack of connection because for physical and mental health reasons, they may not have had networks. They may not have had ways of going out and meeting with other people. So I'm hoping that in at least some of the time we can kind of look towards how to connect those people better, even if we're not able to go out and meet in the same kind of spaces. My partner has chronic fatigue. He hasn't been out for 2 months, more or less. So for some people with physical health conditions, lockdown isn't really that different. So it's kind of, I've been really heartened by what we have been able to do in terms of offer some support and some connection with people with online sessions. Obviously there are issues around accessibility to technology, but I think hopefully as some things go forward, and especially if we can get broadband into people's homes and some technology, we can enable people to connect better in the future. And as I say, I've been very surprised with how positive the online Zoom sessions have been that I've run. So that's one thing that I think at least I'll hopefully going forward, look in my work at ways of connecting people, even if people can't physically get out to my sessions. One thing that I've really noticed myself is the different way of working. So I have inflammatory arthritis and fibromyalgia. So I have issues with my energy and fatigue. I find long working days very challenging. So it used to be if I did 3 or 4 full days, I'd spend the Friday in bed, literally unable to get out of bed. And I still find long days very challenging. And the kind of working pattern that I've got into during lockdown has been really brilliant for both my mental health and my physical health. So I do a couple of hours in the morning, and then I might go for a walk, and then I might do another hour and a half, and then I might do a little bit of exercise, and then I come back and do another chunk of work. And that's really enabled me to have very good sustained energy through the day, as well as make greater use of the outdoors and nature that I've been noticing. So for me, I'm going to find it quite hard to go back and do kind of full days in the office again. And I'm kind of wondering at how, whether it'll be possible, at least in some of my working days, to have that staggered pattern of work, or that kind of chunks of work with time to go outside, to move a little bit. Sitting down all day is so bad for my body. My arthritis doesn't like it, my fibromyalgia doesn't like it, my mental health doesn't like it. So having the opportunity to get up, move around, and even get outside for a bit of a cycle or a walk has really made a big difference to me. And so I'm hoping, at least going forward, that might be something that I can look to change in my own life anyway.
That's something we've been talking about a lot, obviously at GM Moving, both in terms of our own sort of rethinking of how we work as an organisation, and speaking to staff, as well as our wider work with other employers across Greater Manchester, because it has been a common theme. Quite a lot of people saying that sort of, as you say, sort of chunking up of work over the day, of finding and creating more space to stay physically active, to go outside, to enjoy some of their kind of local, and discover actually local sort of green spaces and gems that people said that they previously hadn't been aware of, has really improved for some people, their physical and mental health. And definitely hearing from people that just don't want to let go of that now, and the idea of returning to long commutes and these long busy days where you don't have those breaks and those times to stay active and to stretch and to breathe. We remember that, and we look at how we design that into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been discovering new routes in South Manchester, new green spaces. There was one day where I did an hour and a half cycling, and then I came back and went back to work again, and I was really alert. I was really, full of kind of life from having had that wonderful cycle ride. And then I came back and was able to be really focused. And I'm not usually focused at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but yet I had another kind of 90 minutes of work in me because I'd been outside and moved around a bit. So yeah, I think that will be interesting going forward to see how we can accommodate that into people's routines.
Evidence, and we all know the evidence to say it will enable us to be more alert. It'll enable us to, focus better.
Because of the challenges we're facing with our mental well-being at the moment, any time that we can spend nurturing ourselves, our minds and bodies, is time well spent. So the anxiety that most people are experiencing off and on at the moment is really normal and natural. So it becomes twice as important that we find ways of helping counter it with some kind of restful, relaxing, calming or connecting activities. So getting outside and enjoying the sun on your skin, even if you don't have that green space, could actually be really beneficial for people. And even kind of mindful walking around your house actually could help people's well-being, even if they can't get outside. So I think it is has been for me so important in my managing my stress, my anxiety, my mental health during lockdown, because I'm affected just as much as anyone else. Even though I work for a mental health organisation, doesn't mean I'm kind of immune to experiencing mental ill health. So, and I know that the people who've come on my Zoom sessions, they've also mentioned how important those well-being activities have been for their mental health and helping them feel calmer and more able to manage the challenges that we're being faced with at the moment.
And I think so many of us are sort of intrinsically motivated, aren't we, to have a clear sense of purpose, to be able to help those around us. And at a time like this, when we see crisis, we see so many people struggling, it's quite hard for lots of us to stop to take care of ourselves, because we can constantly see ways in which we can support others, whether it's in the home or in the community or in our workplaces. So it feels all the more important. Like I'm having to tell people all the time at the minute how important it is to, to also look after yourself. It's the whole, apply your gas mask first, because otherwise, if you experience burnout, then you're unable to help those others around us. And we're it, we've got a long way to go, haven't we? I think the actual shift as we gradually emerge out of lockdown in itself is going to be very challenging, and those shifts again to routine and some anxiety around what that means and what it looks like, and adapting further. And then this idea of what does it look like in the longer term feels so uncertain still, in terms of actually living with COVID when so much is unclear as it stands. So it feels so important that, whatever position you're in, we're all conscious about how we make space for those things you mentioned there, in terms of taking time, even if it's just in your own house, to be mindful, to be able to go outside and feel the sun when there is sun, or feel the rain, which can be equally as pleasant, and then to make use of technology going forward to enable connectivity, which, I think you're certainly not alone in having been pleasantly surprised by the way that can, enable some of that sort of social interaction that we've been unable to have sort of face to face. And at the same time, look at how we do design our neighbourhoods, our cities.
Been really lovely when you've been locked up all day to go out to somewhere like Turn Moss in South Manchester, in this huge field, and there's a sense of freedom there. I think, as you say, just being in this wide open space after you've been confined to the house for 23 hours a day. People's anxiety has really been increasing, though. I think things settled a little bit when we got into this routine of living in a new way, but since things have started to shift and change again, we've seen people's anxiety really start to rise again at the kind of prospect of having to go back to work, or putting ourselves at risk, or people we know being put at risk at having to go back to work. So I think it's going to be really important for people to keep the kinds of routines that they've set for themselves, and the kind of well-being activities that they've found that have helped as we go forward, because I think we are going to be on shaky ground, not just for a couple of weeks, but for quite a while now. And uncertainty is not great for mental health at all, for anybody.
Are there any other key tips that you would give to anyone who is struggling with their own mental health, or who's supporting others in whatever capacity?
I think kind of being as kind to ourselves is really important. So being kind to ourselves for feeling anxious rather than feeling that we should be doing better is actually really important. It's really normal to be anxious. It's really normal to find this hard. And we don't need to make it harder on ourselves by trying to power through, or by trying to say you should be doing better, you should be able to cope. Mindfulness has that kindness element, but mindfulness is also about being here in this moment. And in this moment, for most of us, we are okay. So finding ways of being with our senses, with a sense of smell, sight, hearing, the sense of contact with whatever we're sitting on, can help calm the mind down when it starts to spin out of control. So I've been doing kind of grounding meditations with people, and there's lots that are freely available online, which are really about settling the mind a little bit into what's actually going on right now, because our anxiety is often really, really driven by overthinking and by kind of projecting into the future. So whatever people can use to help bring them back into this exact moment, because actually, Eve, at the moment, although I might be anxious, right now I'm breathing, my heart's beating, I'm safe. There's nothing attacking me in my home. I'm just sat on a chair talking to you. And it's each time I remind myself of that, that kind of calms the nervous system down and helps us better able to cope with that challenge that we're living with at the moment. I also think it's important to emphasize that we don't need a lot of time to be able to look after ourselves. So a lot of the exercises I'm doing with people on the Zoom are very short. Some of them 1 or 2 minutes of belly breathing, of calming breathing, a meditation of 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I think there is often a perception that self-care is something that is an extra, that if we have loads of time, we can do it. But actually, you can do it while the kettle's boiling. When you're making your cup of tea, or even, if you're heating something up on the hob or on the microwave, you can sit and do a grounding meditation or do some belly breathing. And I think little and often is really accessible to most people. And I think is what you probably say about exercise as well, rather than waiting for that kind of long time that you can go and do a really long bike ride, little and small amounts can make a big difference. And the other thing I would say that's really important is to, even though it might be hard at the moment, is to really savor any kind of positive experiences that we have rather than brush them off. So every time we have a conversation with someone, a loved one on the phone, or we have a WhatsApp video call, kind of notice that feeling of connection in our bodies, to actually savor it like you would savor a really, really expensive chocolate or cheese or something. You wouldn't just gobble it down. You would take small bites and really savor it and savor the taste afterwards. And it's a really useful practice when we can get into the habit of doing that. Every time something positive happens to us, we give ourselves a few extra seconds to savor it, to enjoy it, to kind of absorb it into the body. And over time, that actually starts to change the brain, and that starts to balance out the negativity bias that human beings have a tendency towards anyway. And that means we're better able to cope with the difficult times. So it doesn't mean that we don't we're pretending everything is fine, but we're allowing ourselves to enjoy the little and nice things that happen every day, like a cup of tea, those sorts of things.
Just listening to you makes my heart beat calm. I can feel myself feeling lighter. I'll just sit here and enjoy and think about my next cup of tea. Is there any final sort of reflections that you would want to share?
Just how important exercise has been for my mental health personally. I exercise pretty much every day, which people kind of find strange when I then tell them I have fibromyalgia and arthritis. But it has been as important for my mental health as for my physical health. So every January, or at least the last couple of years, Manchester Mind has partnered with Red January to encourage people to move every day in January. It was running every day, but it's kind of changed, evolved into some kind of movement every day. So this year I did it, and I was really surprised at how different it was for my mental health. Even though I exercise most days anyway, having that commitment to do something every day, and it didn't have to be a long thing, that January was the happiest January I've ever had, because I'd made a commitment to move in some way every day. So just to kind of reiterate that the importance of exercise is not just for our physical bodies, though of course it's really important for all of those reasons that we know, but for lifting our mood and for helping us better manage stress and challenges. And so I think, kind of looking forward, I think it's really important to kind of promote the messages that exercise or moving is for everybody. And being active is as much for our mental well-being as for our physical well-being. So I know that lots of people who come on my 6-week courses, so the ones for people with long-term health conditions, and many of them haven't exercised for a long time, and quite a lot of them are a bit fed up of being told to exercise, actually. The kind of you must do this, you must lose weight, and the kind of blame culture that has they feel affected them. And so they really turned off about the idea of exercising for their physical health. But often when they come on my courses, their confidence grows, their mental health improves, and then they start to think, I would like to move more. and I would like to do something physical for myself. So I think there is also an importance about how people are talked to about moving. And when people are kind of nurtured and when confidence is built, often they'll come to the conclusion themselves. So I don't have it as a you must exercise for your mental health. That's not part of my courses. However, a lot of people who come on my courses at the end, some of their goals are about wanting to move more, wanting to do some kind of exercise, and it might just be walking. For some people, that's a big change from doing nothing to just walking around the block. And we had some women on one of my courses who were walking more regularly, and they noticed the impact on their mental health. So I think it's really important when we start to talk about moving and exercising to help people see it can be informal, really. Just walking around the block or just moving a little bit more can actually make a big difference. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, about a kind of about the messages and about making it easy for people as well.
Just articulated beautifully our philosophy at GM Moving. So thank you very much. I'm a great advocate, really, of everything we're trying to do in that way. So it's just great to hear that those are the messages that you're, giving out and signalling to the people that you're working with.
But also recognise that walking or using the legs isn't accessible for everybody, depending on mobility, depending on pain levels. So finding ways of helping people be active even when they can't do those things. So the Zumba teacher who I go to classes with in a normal life, I know that she runs seated Zumba classes, so that's kind of accessible for people who can't get up and walk around, or for where there's pain or mobility issues as well. And I think also it would be lovely if bicycles were kind of more promoted to people with different kinds of mobility. And I know someone like Simply Cycling do great work around trying to help people use different kinds of bikes. And I often signpost some of the participants on my courses to them to help them sort of think a bit more creatively about wheels and moving as well.
Absolutely. That's why we need to make sure we're designing those spaces for diversity from the beginning. So we're thinking about our cycle lanes and our pavements as spaces that, whether you're on foot or bike or on wheels or pushing a wheelchair or a buggy, or you've got an adapted bike, adapted cycle, that we really are thinking now about how we design all those spaces to cater for everybody, for everyone to be able to move in a way that works for them. I'm thinking about the Bike Hive project at Alexandra Park about 5 years ago, and there, really, bikes have just been a tool for people to come together. And sometimes people barely even get on the bike or barely go anywhere, but it's been something that's just a focus. People feel that they can come and have a chat and have a cup of tea, and the walk to the park to come to ride a bike has been as important, if not more important, than if they actually then get on a bike when they arrive.
It's been so lovely to see on the trails, in the bikes. I've seen tiny kids on bikes. I've seen a whole family with the tiniest to the dad. Everybody cycling. It's clear they're new to it.
Yeah.
Or they're new to it as a family. I helped signpost a family who were like, oh, we've never been around here before, or I'm hearing people teaching their kids to ride a bike. So I'm keeping fingers crossed that there will be more of us, so at least that will change perceptions as well.
Yeah. Any new things that you've appreciated or anything?
Well, just the simplicity of walking, actually. I think before lockdown, I would go out to Wales and go out and walk in the hills and love that. But I wouldn't see it as part of my life within Manchester. But actually, when we had lockdown, I was almost religious about I'm going out for my walk every day, and haven't gone very far from the house, but have really, really loved it. And that is a big change. That is a big change. So before lockdown, I'd be doing Zumba classes, or I'd be cycling, or I'd be going to yoga. But since lockdown, the focus has been much more on just simply walking, and really noticing the benefits of being outside and moving in that way. And I think I might have been a little bit judgy about walking around the city or around parks. Or, well, that's a bit flat, or it's not proper. And I've totally changed my mind about that. It is proper and it's fantastic. So I think that's changed. I think that's the main thing, and maybe a little bit more cycling for fun as opposed to cycling while I'm scared out of my wits that I'm going to get hit by a car on my commute. I've been doing a little bit more leisure cycling on those lovely off-road routes that we've got in Manchester. So those two changes have been really lovely. So good for my mental health, and I think they've brought me a lot of joy, and I will be hopefully carrying on those sort of, at least if not every day, then some kind of just going for a walk at twilight, or just going for a walk on my lunch. I think those will be things that I would like to carry forward, whether that's on the phone or by video. We have a young people service as well, and all the information is kept up to date on our website, which is manchestermind.org. So sort of do have a look there, and you can kind of have a look around at the sort of services that we're offering, because we are very much here and we are very much needed.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Eve.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, why not share it or tell a friend about it? And if you've got feedback or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch with our team at Greater Sport using the links that you'll find on our podcast page.